Oh, I mean, the overall picture is that since the last census, and we're now over halfway through to the next census in 2021, since the last census, there are government estimates coming out quarterly that are based on the number of people registered with doctors. And what that appears to show is that there has been an increase since the last census of about 600 people. That is good news, but it's based on a single source. It's not straightforward because there's always more people on the doctors' registers than there are actually people in the population. So there's at the moment a constant being applied to try and put that in place. So it's an excellent resource, but it's not the definitive answer. Behind that picture of a slow rise in the population, and it is slow, much slower than it was pre-2011, behind that, the number of older people are growing, and the number of people under 65 are not growing. In fact, they've dropped by 117. The births have dropped further, so we're now 30% fewer births than we had in 2010. So all the vulnerabilities that are behind our population, with an awful lot of people in the late 50s, early 60s passing this 65 threshold, all of that is still in place. We are probably the fourth oldest country on the planet in terms of the percentage of the population aged over 65. Japan and Germany, Portugal, Italy, Finland, they're all up there, and we're certainly inside the top six. So we have some real issues in population, and they haven't gone away.
That sounds quite staggering. Fourth oldest population in the world. Should we be worried? What can we be doing about that? What's that down to, do you think?
Well, I think that's the crux of this. If we had a good understanding of why that's happening, in the period that we've lost the 1,200 people between the last two censuses, the United Kingdom is growing at almost 500,000 people a year. So there's more coming to the UK, but they're not coming here. And in that period of time, or the current position, we've got more than 2,000 full and part-time vacancies and only 400 people unemployed. So the economic sectors here are all looking for people to come in. We've got very high levels of support for business, not just the zero corporation taxes, but a range of other incentives that help businesses bring people in. This is not changing the position. You know, the numbers, especially the numbers of people in their 20s that were moving out between the last two censuses, there's no evidence that they're coming back in any numbers. The population of the schools, as each individual year group passes from year 2 to year 3 to year 4 to year 5, then they're not growing. They're staying fairly constant. Births continuing to go down. So all of those things are sort of leaving us with these questions. Why is it? Is it because of things that we've done or are doing? Is it because of the Isle of Man's lost its mojo? Because in terms of migration, a lot of it's about perceptions. It's not necessarily about the reality. If people think it's not good, and that's what determines their decision. So I would love to see some really serious research going on into the reasons why people have moved away, why people are not moving in, the perceptions of the island, but also looking at the factors that are affecting them. Is it to do with nursery education costs? Is it to do with university fees? Is it, what are the factors involved here?
Well, I'll just bring in the Policy and Reform Minister, Chris Thomas, who also joins us this morning. Good morning. Now, of course, this all ties in. There's various, as we've been saying, factors at play here. But at the moment, government certainly is sort of forward-looking with projections of a much higher population than Paul's saying that we've got in place. So how does this affect, how do these numbers play a part in your sort of future housing development planning?
You use the right word, but you interpret it slightly wrongly. We have projections about what would happen in the future, and then we have policies to achieve our target of what will happen in the future, and they're slightly different things. We used to focus very much on 500 people a year. Now what we've done is we've said this will happen if certain trends continue. So the crucial thing for us to focus on as an action government is what we're doing about it, and the programme for government improves the process of estimating the population, has improved the research about what's going on with population. So we had a white paper, and most importantly, we've got policies to address the challenges that Paul has correctly raised. We need to deal with the ageing population.
Is it as movable as the changing of the numbers that we're seeing, though?
It very much is. So Paul's is an excellent atlas, and on page 91 I'm quoted because back in 2015 I took a debate to the floor of Tynwald as a private member about the need for a population policy, and one thing I identified in that was our population depends not only on the natural factors like death rate and birth rate and ageing and the ageing nature of the population, the demography, it also it depends on immigration. So what this government has done is tried to make our programme for government address the issue of why younger people are leaving and why Manx people can't return after studies and at a later stage in their lives. So our primary objective is growing the economically active population, and the way you do that is you make the life here and the career possibilities here excellent, and that's what we're trying to do. So increasing median earnings is one of our main targets to increase the economically active population, enabling local people, but also adding to that where we need to for our society and our economy.
Well, something that certainly springs to mind and has come up in Tynwald yesterday, of course, was the Eastern Area Plan. How has that affected? I mean, how much is that based on these trends that we're seeing?
Yeah, we've produced an evidence paper inside the area plan for the East, and yesterday I announced that would be revisited. There would be new evidence provided, and I announced that the public inquiry preparations were ongoing and an independent inspector was being appointed with a view to having a full public inquiry with a pre-inquiry earlier, so that the Eastern Area Plan is available before the end of the year. But let's go back to some of the policy responses that we've got. First of all, Paul is quite right. We do need to look at young childcare. We also do need to look at student grants. We also need to look at the reasons why people move around. So that's why in February we had a locate.im policy with lots of codependent policies. I think government can take a little bit of the credit for the turnaround, but certainly what we've got to do is we've got to create a buzz in our island, as was there for many, many decades, and all of a sudden confidence will change and people will come back, and I'm very interested in what Paul's comments are on that.
Well, a very quick return then to Paul for a response before we run out of time.
Well, it's interesting to hear Chris sort of talk about we've got projections and we've got targets. We haven't got a target population. Indeed, in my mind, we haven't got a clear, explicit population policy as to what we're doing. We've got some piecemeal bits that have gone in. And I give credit to that, the doubling of the preschool credit and the proposal to have national insurance holidays for students returning from university. These are the right sort of areas. But in terms of growing the economically active population, the population under 65 has fallen in the last 3 years. So we've got more to do there. And it's not just about putting money into employers. It is about looking at what's happening to ordinary people on the ground.